Hello, everyone. Good evening. Here, there, in between, everyone. Thank you for being here with everyone together to listen to the stories of the many eminent persons. However distant past they were, they still have great relevance in teachings, particularly those that are connected and told deliberately by the Buddha and recorded and from 2,500 years ago, and then being translated and read, and we as a faithful devotees of Dharma have good reason to feast ourselves like this. Thank you very much, everyone. Let's start the session with the usual formality of doing the refuge, renewing our refuge, which is always as fresh and as new, relevant, even more relevant than 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Some things get wear out and they're not good after some certain time. But refuge and the triple gem has become better and better every time. Every time, you wouldn't believe. This is my experience. So, therefore, doing the refuge prayer is a great way to rekindle our faith and devotion and commitment to practice the way of the Dharma. So, with this, we do the prayers. O Inda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Aitere Vita Ladam Bhavachu Adiyandala Ashare Vada Duvebi Inda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Aitere Vita Ladam Bhavachu Adiyandala Ashare Vada Duvebi Inda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Aitere Vita Ladam Bhavachu Adiyandala Ashare Buddha Udubis. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and cause of suffering. May they know a power from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, those near. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and a cause of suffering. May they never have power from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, those near. May all beings have happiness, and the cause of happiness, may they be free from suffering, and the cause of suffering, may they never part from the happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far, according to the intelligence and predisposition of it, where the Yatanda Dharma agrelo and come. on the wise and foolish, which really means that how often are we able to stay very tame and wise, and how more often we are dwindling into foolishness. So when we look at stories of others, we say, "Oh, how stupid is he?" or "How wise is that?" We need to look at the stories of them that are told in this in relation to the relevance of the experiences that you are going through or have gone through, or not really managing certain things very well, whether you are being wise in the type of thoughts or type of perception, type of decisions you make, or do you think it's all due to somebody else doing to you, When we think it's all someone's doing to me, it's being foolish. We are foolish. When we know it is largely due to many causes and conditions, and I alone has the ability to choose the safe way by kindness, wisdom, and discipline, and then you will see the wise way of doing things. So therefore the Sutra of Wise and Foolish is not a name for a specific sutra, but is generally applicable to every sutra. However different the individuals, the key leader in the story or place or agent or persons or activities, whatever happen, there's always something you can see how wise or how generous or how foolish this was or that was, but then we will say, how about my? Where have I been wise like that? Where have I been so foolish like that without knowing they are? And that's really the meaning, that it can delight you. It says at the end of each story how everybody listening to the story got delighted and found lots of realizations about that story, but it's really meant to. It made a lot of sense to their stories, and they will learn to not be so foolish, and they can learn to be wise. So we have Jamila has been reading in my absence for last 2 or 3 sessions. Thank you very much. And I'm now continuing where we left, chapter 12. Shantivadin. Shantivadin is a Sanskrit word. Shanti means patient. Vadin means one with, so the patient one. The patient one is the patient rishi. Patient rishi. Rishi is another Sanskrit word which means saint or saint. Yeah. What is saint? Saint in Tibetan is tupa. Tupa means an ascetic or one who's able. So rishi is someone one is able to do what ordinary people can do. It doesn't mean you rise up early morning and go to bed late and do 2 shifts a job. Even that is pretty able, really. Able person, we call it. But with this talking about quite a lot of ability to renounce selfishness, ability to put others' well-being before oneself, ability to wear the blames by other people, ability to accept the hardships of life as one's own karma. That's a rishi. Instead of complaining and putting arms up and saying hoo-ha and how dare you do this to me type of thing, they don't do that. Even if people do that to them, they just accept. They don't stir it up. The rishis are non-stirrer. Even if other people stir others up, rishis don't stir back. Rishi or Muni. The Tibetan Muni is Shakyamuni with Rishi or Muni. They are synonyms. Tibetan word for Rishi is Trangsong. Muni is Tupa. Trangsong means one who's honest and very, very straightforward, honest and pure. And however impure, arrogant, aggressive someone is to you, you just be patient with that. You just know how to let that suffering go no wasted by taking it on and make it useful. Not react to someone as who's right and who's wrong, to prove, to clean your name, that kind of rubbish. What a waste. The munis are those who are able to wear the blames, those who are able to wear the sufferings as a purification of their own karma, an act of compassion. Accepting blame is act of compassion. It may look on the surface as he's guilty and he must have done all the wrong things, and people may think like that, but he's not. He knows everything is very, very interdependent. But the more he wears the blame on him, the less the suffering will ripple effect to others. So he put others first, him last. Very few people want. Most people don't want to do that. That's a muni. A person who sit in the cave and not eat much and not go anywhere is also called muni, because he's able to withstand aloneness and few meat, few food, and few company, and no entertainment. Not that he seeks them anyway. He's just given up them. He knows there's futility. So muni is incredible, Most people can't even sit 1 hour still. They want to sit, but when they sit, they become restless and they give up. The munis will never give up until they have overcome their neurotic mind. So this story will elucidate that, Shantivadin. Thus I've heard at one time, this is talking about I have heard. So who's this I? According to Theravada literature, this I refers to Ananda. Mahayana says that this I refers to Vajrapani or other bodhisattvas who heard the Buddha teach Mahayana and Vajrayana sutras and tantras. So here, this being a pan-Buddhist sutra, so it's referred to Ananda is the one who. Thus, I have heard at one time, the enlightened one is Shakyamuni Buddha, was residing in Bamboo Grove. The Bamboo Grove is still a very prominent place if you go to Rajgriha. In the Kalandaka bird in the city of Rajgriha. So it's because those tall bamboo groves attract lots of Kalandaka bird. Kalandaka bird is, I don't know exactly what that is equivalent in English. I'm not an ornithologist. Anyone out there know what a Kalandaka is? Anyway, you can do that. Anyway, bird in the city of Rajgriha. In 2,600 years ago, they said city. These days, it's a little hamlet, a lot of ruins. So past city, glories of past big cities. Today, you see only ruins. Incredible, the foundation stones of the gate of Rajgriha and the fence looks enormously big sandstone rocks. I've been there. Often people forget to go there. They just go to Vulture's Peak, because there is a cable car you can ride and go to where Buddha taught the Heart Sutra, but they don't realize that many activities happen in Kalandaka, this bamboo grove. Bamboo grove is called Venu Vana. Venu means bamboo, Vana means grove. At that time, soon after he had attained supreme enlightenment, so that's Buddha. After attaining enlightenment, he was nearby because that's not far from Gaya, Bodh Gaya. The Buddha ordained the five-headed by Kaudinya, and thereafter Nadi Kashyapa and the 1,000 brethren. So Buddha, this is a story of the Buddha. Wherever he went, he was ordaining people. Yeah, ordaining means making them good. Become the arrogant, become humble, and greedy become contented, and undisciplined become disciplined, and angry become soft, and so he ordained them, and he also ordained Nadi Kashyapa and 1,000, because these 1,000 people were followers of Nadi Kashyapa. There were quite a different few Kashyapa, Urilevela Kashyapa, Nadi Kashyapa, and so on. These were themselves great religious leaders at the time. After he had ordained many others, and many were endeavoring in the Dharma, all the people of the city of Rajgriha rejoiced with exceedingly great joy and lauded the enlightened one thus, because everybody was so inspired by Buddha's incredible influence on other people. He just have to be known to be existing in the vicinity, and everybody will be changed. So that was the presence of the Buddha was so exceedingly great joy, and everybody was so happy. The Buddha, the Tathagata, has come to this world, and this is greatly marvelous as he aids all peoples and nations. So they all lauded, or they all applauded, rejoiced, and spoke greatly about the Buddha and his incredible positive influence that he has on others. Similar to much more, many more times, like the positive influence, the name and the position of His Holiness Dalai Lama has today, And whole town stops. Small little villages become big cities of faith and devotion, and the whole Himachal state almost had turned Dharamsala into a semi-capital city, capital to Simla. Simla is the only political capital, but it hasn't got much going for there. All the large hotels, all the incredible people go and visit, but Dharamsala. Dharamsala is geographically not a very easy place to go and travel to. It's very perilous and mountainous place, but every nook and crook, every place is completely packed because of the incredible influence that His Holiness Dalai Lama's name and his presence has to that region. Now, if someone like His Holiness Dalai Lama has that much influence today, what must be like the influence of all the people that Buddha had? Because Buddha had lots of disciples who could fly with him and do all sorts of things. They don't have to book a seat on a spice jet, They all just lift the robes, and they all flew like a whole flock. Anyway, you can imagine. When the monks heard this, they reported in detail to the Buddha. Lord then said to them, because when the monks have heard about this, they told the Buddha, in times long past, with a firm mind, I made the vow that when I attain enlightenment, I would aid them before all others. So Buddha explaining to his disciples that this is actually my vow. This is my long-held wish that I will do that. I wanted to be able to do that. It's like any one of us. Really, we wish to be benefit to others. If you have 50 people who love you and who like your work and teaching, you'd be very, very motivated, won't you? Look at a tiny person like me. Even I have a little ability to stand on feet because there is some ripple effect of Dharma coming to me, and that is helping others. So that's what we're talking about here. This is the story of how influence of the one wise shakes thousands of ordinary foolish and turns them towards the good. And that's the kind of positive impact. Hearing the Buddha's words, the monks asked, "Lord, we beg you to relate how in times long past you made a mighty vow with a mind of compassion." They're asking, how did you make that vow? What was the vow? And what did you do? So they always want to ask. They wouldn't sit still. The good students are nuisance to the teacher, always asking questions. The Buddha said, "Listen well, monks, and bear in mind, I shall tell you. Long eons ago, the monks, eons past counting, past reckoning, past conceiving, beyond telling, there lived a king of Benares by the name of Kalinga. At that time, in the mountain of that country, there dwelt a rishi. The rishi is the saint, by the name of Shantivadin, who lived together with 500 disciples and applied himself to meditation on patience. Upon a certain occasion, the king, together with his queen, minister, and his entourage, went to the mountain to enjoy the scenery and amuse themselves. The king became very weary and fell asleep, and the queen and her entourage went into the forest to admire the flowers, where they saw the rishi Shantivadin, his body unmoving, sitting in serene majesty. The mind of faith was born in the queen and her attendants. They made offerings of various kinds of flowers, and sitting down before the rishi, listened to the Dharma. When the king awoke, he looked around and, seeing that the queen was absent, went into the forest in search of her. When he spied her and her attendants seated before the rishi, he addressed him, "Have you attained the 4 stages of ecstasy?" The rishi replied, he had not. King then asked him if he had attained the 4 stations of Brahma. The rishi said he had not. The king then asked if he had attained the 4 dhyanas, and then the rishi said he had not attained to dhyana. King became very angry and said, "Since you have not attained, you are a scoundrel. Who would trust you here in this deserted place with these women? What do you have to say for yourself, living here in this place?" The rishi said, "Here in mountains I meditate on patience." Because now king was suspecting that he has none of this realization. So what is he doing with my woman, my wife? So, because that's what the foolish men think like that. Foolish men think like that. Foolish women think like that, and they usually see only that what they think. But of course, the saint Shantivadin wasn't anything like that. He was very honest. He was saying, "I have not attained any of that, but I'm trying to practice patience." My mind has not been separated from patience in the least. So he says, I've been just practicing patience. That's all. I haven't attained any of those glorious names you have just mentioned. Thereupon the king became terrified and said to the rishi, "Ah, rishi, when you said that you were a Shantivadin, who would have believed it?" The rishi said, "My words are not false." So now the rishi became very adamant. My words are perfect truth. If they were indeed true, may my blood become milk, and my limbs, which were severed, become as they were formerly. When the rishi had spoken thus, his blood became milk, and his limbs appeared as before. Seeing this, king was even more frightened and said, "Great rishi, I have harmed you because of ignorance and sin." And sin. I confess these sins to you. Do you have compassion on me? The rishi said, "It was because of the woman that you cut off my limbs with a sword. This did not harm me, because my patience is like the earth. When I shall have attained the enlightenment of Buddha, I shall cut away my 3 poisons with the sword of wisdom." So this kind of teaching is very, very incredible, yeah. So it's almost like saying that the king cutting his limbs, king cutting the limb of the rishi, is not really cause for upset for him. He says, I really need the kind of sword like you're using. That is wisdom, yeah. That is wisdom, yeah. And that I really need to cut my ignorance, my hatred, my desire with the sword wisdom. You know, he says, so this is nothing. This is you cutting my body is nothing. This is excellent cause for me to practice patience. See, this is the wisdom. This is the thinking we should try to think like that. How can you get into the head of a rishi like that, being able to think like that? If someone cut your limbs, instead of being upset by it, saying like, this is nothing, this is just practicing patience, I really wanted to have the sword like you use, that is wisdom. He's not putting down the king's sword, you know. Yeah, I like to attain sword like that, yours too, but that which can cut off the three poisons. When the gods and nagas of that mountain saw that the king has harmed the rishi, they were enraged and stirred up the clouds and brought them together. The nagas roared and sent down thunderbolts from the sky, and the king and those with him about to be killed became terrified and cried, "Great rishi, have compassion to save us." When the rishi commanded the gods and nagas not to harm living beings for his sake, they became calm and disappeared, because otherwise the gods and nagas, you know, they usually sort of very, very, they are natural. They are nature gods. Nature gods of mountains are male. That's considered. Nature gods of water and lake considered to be women. Anyway, so they have amazing power to see and understand, so they can cause great havoc if they are not pleased, disturbed, if they can cause really wonderful blessings to happen in your life if they are pleased, because they bear witness to what you're doing. The king, having confessed his sins, invited the rishi to his palace and honored him with various kinds of offerings. When a 1,000 mendicant who follow other teachers saw the king and his entourage honoring the rishi Shantivadin and believing in him, they became envious and threw filth on the rishi. You know, now the rishi becomes at this moment he became object of wrath of the king. Now he has become the object of jealousy of the others. The mendicants who at that time threw filth on me are now Nadikashapa. So now Buddha is telling the story, you know. This Nadikashapa, who have recently been ordained by Buddha, in the past, he says, who at that time, mendicants who at that time threw filth on me are the mendicants now in this life is Nadikashapa and 1,000 monks. My meditation and patience at that time was a vow that when I should have attained supreme enlightenment, I would cleanse their impurities with the water of Amrita, would totally purify their attachments. So that was the vow he made. He made when they did this to him at that time. Instead of being upset and agitated and harmed or ruined devastated by them, he made these vows. May this, this space my meditation. I made a vow that may I attain enlightenment and cleanse the impurities with the water of Amrita. Amrita means nectar. Would purify the attachments. So that is actually the Amrita is the wisdom, the sword of wisdom. You know, and so he made, "O monks, do not think that at that time and under those circumstances Rishi Shantivadin was anyone else but me." He said, "Oh, I was. That is, at that time, I was. That time I was Shantivadin. This time I am Shakyamuni Buddha." So basically, Buddha is saying that in his past life he was Shantivadin, and he practiced this and made these prayers. Yeah. Kaudinya and 4 were King Kalinga and 4 ministers. Yeah, Kaudinya with 5 monks, Buddha's 5 disciples. Kaudinya and Ashwajit and Aniruddha and so on. Those 5 were the King Kalinga and his 4 ministers. When at that time, when I meditated on patience, I vowed that when I attain supreme enlightenment, I would first liberate them from suffering, and now that I have attained Buddhahood, I have indeed liberated them first. So Buddha said that I made the vow at that time, no matter how they treated me, instead of being upset with them, angry at them, and for their aggression and so on, I instead made vow that may this become a cause for me to liberate them in the future. And now this is the result. Now they have become the 5 mendicants has become my disciples. The monks had faith in Buddha's words greatly and rejoiced. Yeah, everybody believed. Oh wow, this is how capable, how wise, and how patient it was for him to be able to do that. And Buddha can remember who he was, what people did, and what prayers he did. That's the wisest thing you can do. That's the Sutra wise. The foolish people, when this happens, you know what they do? They go to their home and they go call all their friends and they try to go and retaliate them. They try to hire lawyers and all those things, try to drag them, everybody, into the court and try to put them in that. That's what the foolish people do. The foolish people do these days. That's exactly because these days we don't call them foolish people. We think they wanted to have a sort of they want to have justice, they think they have going to have some justice or something. And, when you have the great wisdom of the Buddha, he took on all the hardships on himself. Instead of blaming them, he made a vow. May this encounter that I've gone through purify all the karma I have created and they have created. May they become my disciples in the future. Because right now it is them who's teaching them to practice patience. May I, in the future, may I be able to liberate them. That's exactly what happened. What a lovely story it is. I mean, this happens all the time in everyday people's life. When something happens, and they get, even small things happen, they just become so infuriated, and they don't want nothing to do with the person, and go away, and making lots of noise, and they stay crook, and stupid, and foolish, more foolish than the year after, more foolish even the year after, and they stay crook, and depressed, and angry, and enmity, and that's the story of the foolish. There's no story of foolish in this one. There's only the story of the wise one. Maybe those who did harm to the Buddha maybe looked like very foolish, but they, due to the virtue of the object. The object being Bodhisattva, even their misdeeds become purified. Their misdeeds of harming the Buddha, of the Shantivadin at the time, became cause for themselves to become a suitable disciple of the future Buddha. So maybe sometimes we should also try that. Maybe we should harm some holy beings. I'm not saying you should harm anybody, but maybe sometimes we can harm some holy beings, and then by virtue of harming some holy beings, due to their prayers, maybe due to their prayer we might be born as their disciples. But I'm not suggesting you do that because you have to have great vision, great courage to do that. But here we need to draw the strength from this story is instead of losing our patience and being impatient and angry at them, try to offer prayer. May this encounter become not wasted by this suffering and difficulty. May this purify all the mutual karma we have created. May in the future, by good times, may I be able to liberate them. May they be able to help me and help each other to find a way out of samsara, instead of thinking them as the sole cause of our suffering and then try to bring them down. This is what the foolish people do. This is what the deluded people do. Deluded professionals. Most professional people are, I find, unless they are touched by Dharma, more professional, but are more deluded and more uptight they are. There's so much box in their little discipline knowledge, and they don't have any room for reconsideration, from any room for Shantivadin. They have no room for to look in a different way, because they're so narrowed by their arrogance, their self-righteousness, their professionalism. And Rishi and Shantivadin, like disciples who live in these kind of remote areas, they definitely, of course, make a huge changes. So that's the story. That's the 12th story. So that's the short one. Next one is the 13th, chapter 13 is King Mitrabala. Maitrabala means powerful loving kindness. Powerful loving kindness. This is not talking about loving kindness from one to another you're attached to because of blood relatives or because whatever. That's not really loving kindness. That's just attachment closeness, attachment connection. Attachment connection is not called Maitribala. Very powerful connection between people. Some are so stuck with it. Lots of, of course it's good to have very commitment and dedication to each other's help, happiness, and so on. Being patient and whoever we can be, it's good. But when that is so finitely discriminated to one and not to anybody else, that's an attachment connection. So this Maitribala is not attachment connection. It's a loving kindness. Bala means power, empowered by the loving kindness. This is a king Maitribala. Thus I have heard at one time, enlightened one was residing in the city of Shravasti. So you can see that most of the stories are happening either in Rajgriha, in the bamboo grove, or in Shravasti, in the Jetavana. These two are incredible location-wise. One is northwest India, and one is east India, because Gaya is east, like nearest to Calcutta. Jetavana monastery in Anatha Pindika's park. Anatha meaning the unprotected. Natha, Pindika means who feeds, the feeder of the poor. So feeder of the poor, that's means feeder of the poor. That's his name. That was the name he earned by giving, doing the generosity. He had a different name, but he got the name named after the good he do, feeding the poor, feeder of the poor. Upon a certain occasion, when Ananda was going on alms round, alms in a certain occasion means in one of the mornings. It doesn't mean in the mid-afternoon or late evening. Ananda doesn't do that. They always beg alms around the late morning, mid to 10:30 onwards, probably, depending how far they have to walk. When Ananda was going on alms round, he sat down in a deserted garden, and thought came to him. Marvelous is this, that the perfect enlightenment has come to the world and has brought joy to many beings, and that because the five-headed by Gautinya created form of virtues, and door of the Dhamma has been opened, and they have entered. So he was rejoicing the fact that what the Buddha is, and how he taught the first 5 mendicants, and how much the gateway of Dharma has opened for so many people to find the way to the nectar and bliss and absence of sorrow, because of the Dharma's nectar that they're able to listen and practice and relish and do. And he was just like you could be doing that every time. That just sit there, don't entertain any thought, just rejoice the Buddha, rejoice the incredible the Dharma. That when people truly pay heed to Dharma, how much they become saner and kinder and carer and less negative and things like that. How quickly we reconstitute our mind. So Ananda is really doing Anandaing, you know. Ananda means be joyful, you know. He was rejoicing the Buddha, and they say we should recollect the Buddha. You know, they say we recollect the Buddha, it will give you lots of joy. Lots of people are not recollecting the Buddha; they're recollecting their past. Or what didn't he do to me? Or I didn't do that to them, and then thinking about that, regurgitating. You know, that's not a practitioner. Always recollecting their miserable stories. Don't even remember anything. Forget all of those. Forget your past. Remember the story of the Buddha. Remember the story of all the people who were affected by the Buddha. And remember all the people who have forgotten their past and gave up their past, gave up self, gave up their past stories, gave up thinking about themselves. That's the foolish people do that, always thinking of themselves. And then they become sad and depressed, worried and anxious and helpless and lonely and so on. When you're like Ananda, you know, he was going into the bush, walking arms around. He probably forgot to collect alms. You know, he just sat there in the middle, in blissful, joyful, rejoicing the Buddha, rejoicing the Dharma, recollecting that. That's what it is. The drum of Dharma has been sounded, and they were first to hear. He couldn't believe. Buddha beat the drum, and they're the one who heard it first. What must be like to be them? He was just so enchanted, rejoicing, and delighted. They too were the first to taste the nectar of the Dharma. You know, he's playing the words. He heard the song of Dharma. They taste the nectar. They sniff the best nectar. They touch the smooth Dharma. They look the beautiful Dharma, or whatever. All the senses were completely, sweetened by the meeting, by coming in contact with the Dharma. You know. Yeah, and I mean we should do that. You know, always. This really change you. This is meditation. This is meditation. Learn to hear the real musical truth of the Dharma. Learn to smell the incredible aroma of the Dharma's perfusion. Yeah, learn to see the amazing artistic depiction of the truth of the Dharma that no artist can draw that with their brushes. You know, even with 1,000 brushes, they couldn't draw such a beautiful painting like the teachings of the truth of the Dharma. And that's exactly what is you should be doing. When you're meditating, you don't just sit and blank and watch the breath or something. Just do more. You know, but watching the breath is for beginners. Once you know how to, just think of the Buddha. Think of the Buddha. Buddha is the most appropriate object of meditation, and think of the qualities of Buddha. Inhale and retain and exhale, and think again and again and again, and then you will know what this means, what Ananda was doing. Ananda was doing this. He was admiring the five disciples, Kaudanya, what they heard, what they smelled, what they tasted, by hearing the teachings taught by the Shakyamuni Buddha. Arising, then he woke up, he got up from the seat, because it's halted him from going on arms round, Yeah, sometimes you can sit on a bench, just sit there and rejoice the Dharma. Forget to go to work. Very good. Yeah, I think sit on the bench for 2 weeks. Or maybe 2 hours. How do you know how long is how long? You're so blissed out by the by the enchantment of the Dharma, you wouldn't know when is when and where is where and who is you. That's good. Yeah, that's it. Arising, he went to the Buddha and told him what he had been thinking. Then he went to the Buddha what he was thinking. So because his uncle as well, The Buddha said, Ananda, in times long past when the 5 headed by Kaudinya were starving and dying of thirst, I fed them with my own body and gave them my own blood to drink, caused them to rejoice. This is Hungry Tiger story, yeah? Hungry Tiger story. Because the Hungry Tiger story was told slightly different before what we read, but here it's told this way. I have set them on the path of liberation, this not without causes and reasons. Thereupon the noble Ananda said to the Buddha, Lord, I beg you to recount how in times long past you satisfied their hunger and thirst and caused them joy. If those present hear this, they will understand. So Ananda is saying, could you please tell us, who was it? What did you do, The enlightened one said, Ananda, in eons long past, eons beyond recall, there was a king in this Jambudibba by the name of Mitrabala. So Mitrabala, who had subject to him 84,000 lesser kings. So it means he was a great king with lots of other people under him. He had 20,000 queens and 10,000 princes. The king was endowed with love and compassion, practiced with the 4 immeasurables, and in his compassion for all beings ruled according to the 10 virtues. All honored the king, and because of his grace, there were no enemies in the land, and it was a happy one. So he was really doing all the right things. Yeah, the lords of the contagious disease, a preta demon, who deprived them of their blood and health, were helpless, without strength, and perishing in that land at that time, because all the people guarded their speech, thought, and acts, practiced the 10 virtues. Upon a certain occasion, 5 yakshas appeared before the king and said, O king, we are starving and our lives are in danger. When we attempt to obtain human blood and flesh, we cannot, because all the people in your kingdom practice the 10 virtues. Being without food and drink, we are going to perish. Great king, why is it that you, in your compassion, you are so cruel? The king thought, these beings require no other food than bloody flesh, and if they do not have it, they'll die. I shall cut the 5 veins in the 5 members of my body and give them blood and drink. He then cut himself, took the blood from his body, and gave it to the yakshas, who were then happy and satisfied. They then said to him, Your Majesty, how will you now perform the 10 virtues? The king replied, Just as I have now taken the blood from my own body and given to you, satisfy you and made you happy, when I shall have attained supreme enlightenment, I shall purify your 3 poisons with the teachings of the body of the law, samadhi, and wisdom. So law, samadhi, and wisdom actually means shila, samadhi, and prajna. I shall change into your suffering. I shall change into joy your suffering, which arise from attachment, and shall cause you to enter into the bliss of nirvana. Ananda, I was the king Maitrabala. The 5 headed by Kaudinya were the yakshas, and I vowed that wherever we would be reborn, they would be the first that I would deliver. So this is another story of the 5 mendicants and the Buddha in their past life. It is for this reason that I have taught them the Dharma first and totally liberated them. So the prayer in encounter between the Buddha and the 5 mendicants has occurred many times before. This wasn't quite the feeding the hungry tigers, but it was rather similar. Thereupon the noble Ananda and many people who were present had faith in the sword of the Buddha and rejoiced. Yeah, so everybody who heard the story couldn't believe their ears, what they're hearing, and what kind of karma that they have earned, being fed and being served and by the Buddha in his past life as Maitri Bala. So that's chapter 13. Now 14.1 is the taming of the 6 heretic teachers. Have you heard of this? They talk about Buddha had quite a 6 contemporary Indian religious teachers who had claimed their own religious traditions. So here, this story is we should really know how the Buddha actually tamed these 6 heretic masters. So I will read through fairly speedily, as it is quite easy to understand. Thus I've heard one time, the enlightened one was residing in Rajgriha in the bamboo grove of Kalandaka bird, together with an assembly of 1,250 monks. At that time, the king Bimbisara, with his mind of faith, Bimbisara is the father of Ajatasattu, no? And Ajatasattu. His mind of faith and devotion, having increased through hearing the Dharma, regularly supplied the Buddha and the Sangha with the 4 necessities. You know, the 4 necessities is food, clothes, medicine, shelter. Okay? If you really just contented with that, then that's what makes a life possible to practice Dharma. If you want more than these 4, and that's where you always run into trouble, run into stress, because you want more than food, clothes, shelter, and medicine. Food you just for the today, clothes just to keep the very body warm, and shelter wherever you're going to be there, and the medicine when you get sick. And we don't get sick often, and so you basically food, clothes, and shelter. Food, clothes, and shelter. Sangha with 4 necessities. While the people were striving toward virtue, a heretic teacher by the name of Purnakashapya, so this is one of the 6 heretics, yeah, who was followed by 500 heretic teachers, came to that country in order to deceive beings with their evil, false views. Many accepted these views and they spread greatly. You know, usually charlatan spiritual teachers attract more people. That's why, and they were attracting thousands. They were attracting thousands. A younger brother of King Bimbisara believed that these false views were the path to liberation, made offering to the heretics. That's King Bimbisara's younger brother actually was attracted to these teachers. Although the Buddha, like the risen sun, illuminated all of his wisdom, the younger brother, obstructed by these false teachings, refused to have faith in Lord Buddha, and although the king tried various means to induce him to honor the Buddha, he refused to believe. Again and again the king requested him to make offering to the Buddha, but he replied that since he already had a teacher, there was no need to honor Gautama. Yeah, some people like that. They are so under the influence of someone's kind of a charm or whatever it is, but actually they have nothing, no doctrine there. They're just believing because he can produce something by rubbing his fingers or something, you know. They're so enchanted, or he can produce some flames between his fingers or some dust between his fingers. Some people are following somebody just because they witnessed these things, you know. That's exactly what this is similar to, you know. King's younger brother was always following that. He doesn't want to follow the Buddha. Upon a certain occasion, the younger brother prepared a feast of offering, and setting out a great table, made known that he would give alms food to all who came, and especially invited the 6 heretic teachers, who immediately appeared. So the younger brother of Bimbisara made a big feast, and he invited all the 6 heretical teachers came. The Buddha and his followers, not having been invited, did not come. Of course, Buddha do not go unless you're invited. You don't go unless you're invited, don't you? And an invitation was then sent to the Buddha and Sangha, and the enlightened one, surrounded by his noble assembly, came and sat down according to seniority. So later on, they issued an invitation to the Buddha, and Buddha, accompanied by his disciples, they all sat in the correct sequence. Through the power of the Buddha, the seats of the 6 heretic teachers suddenly became lowest, even though they themselves would have put fairly high rise seat and maybe something prominent seat, but their seat become naturally go lower and lower and lower. Lowest. Embarrassed by this, they again resumed their high seats. They quickly put another cushion or whatever, rearranged them, and they weren't happy to sit there or whatever. They were doing these high seats, but suddenly found themselves in the lower places again. So their seats were always getting lower and lower. 3 times they returned to their high seats, but each time found themselves again in lower seats, and giving up, they remained there ashamed. So their seat was self-demoting. Their seat were getting, they were just automatic seat. They'd get shorter and shorter, and lesser and lesser prominent. When the Master of Gifts brought water for the washing of the hands, Buddha told them, first offer it to your teachers. Because Buddha said, first offer the water to your teachers. When he tried to pour it over their hands, the water did not flow. Water wouldn't fall onto the hand of the teachers. But when he offered to the Buddha, it flowed and washed everyone's hands according to rank. They just had to pour water on the Buddha's hand, and everybody's hand was washed according to the sequence they're supposed to be in seniority. It's just another miracle, really. When the younger brother offered the food and asked for the blessings, Buddha told him, ask the blessings from your teacher. The host went before the 6 heretic teachers, but they were unable to open the mouth and motioned for him to ask the Buddha. Because they couldn't even do anything. They can't receive food. They can't open the mouth. Lord then said the blessings in a voice as sweet as the voice of the Brahma. When the food was given, Buddha said, first offer to your teacher. But when the servants tried to serve the food, 6 heretics, it flew up in the sky. But after the Buddha and his disciples had been served, it returned to their hands. When the offerings had been eaten, the Buddha and his followers rinsed their mouth, washed their hands, again sat in the row according to the seniority. Master Gifts then asked the Buddha to teach the Dharma, but the Buddha said, you should ask your own teachers. When he asked the 6 heretics, they were unable to open the mouth, and by gestures indicated they should ask the Lord. They said, we can't speak, you should ask him. So they were signaling that they should talk to the Buddha because they can't speak no word. They just have no voice. They lost the voice. Buddha then taught the true nature of Dharma in a melodious voice, and people's minds were calmed. They understood it thoroughly and impressed it upon their minds. The younger brother of King Bimbisara attained the pure eye of Dharma, and others attained from the first to the third fruits. Some established a mind of supreme enlightenment, some became stream winners, and all comprehended the truth and honored and had faith in the 3 jewels and no longer desired to listen to the 6 heretic teachers or honor them. In anger, the 6 teachers retired in a solitary place and sat brooding. So they were not, they were completely outperformed by Buddha, and they were now brooding. Thereupon the evil Mara thought, it has been a long time now since I have caused trouble for the monk Gautama. There has been no opportunity, but now I think I can make some. Transforming himself into a form of mendicant, he appeared before the 6 heretics, Purnakashapa, Maskari, Gosaliputra, Sanjaya Vairata Putra, Ajika Kleshambala, Kakudakatayana, and Nigrantha Jnani Pudra, and exhibited many magic powers such as making fire burst forth, making water flow, lighting flash, and so forth. They said to him, "Ah, perfect one, have you attained to such great virtue?" The Maharaj said, "I have." Thereupon each one of them thought, "Only we can perform wonders of this sort," and later at an assembly announced, "Formerly the king, the ministers, Brahmins, and all the merchants honored us, made offerings of food, robes, beds, medicine, and all the necessities. But now they honor this monk Gautama, and we no longer receive these things. We would like to test Gautama's ability in magic. If he performs 1 feat, we will perform 2. If he performs 2, we will perform 4. If he performs 8, we will perform 16. If Gautama performs 16, we will perform 32. We will double any wonder that the monk Gautama can perform." And then they went to the king and greeted him. "May you be victorious, your majesty. May you have long life." Then said, "Your majesty, we are wise and have supernatural powers. Since the monk Gautama also pretended into wisdom and unusual powers, we have had a contest with him in magic. Your majesty, the monk Gautama must confront us." King laughed and said, "You idiots, how can you possibly compete with the Buddha, who is endowed with countless virtues, with countless spiritual powers, and with mighty attainments? How can a firefly compete with the sun or moon? How can the water in a cow's hoof pedal compete with the great ocean? How can a timid fox compete with the lion? How can a dunghill compare with Mount Meru? Why do you who have wrong views vilify the supreme among the Aryans with these silly words?" Again the 6 teachers spoke. "Your majesty, you speak without knowing. When you see proof, then you will understand. We shall certainly compete with Gautama, and everything will become clear after the contest." The king said, "If you must have a contest, have it when and where you wish, but you are going to be put to shame. When you have it, inform me." The teacher said that the contest would take place within a week, and they would prepare the place for it. The king immediately went to the Buddha and told him, "Lord, the 6 heretic teachers say that they are going to compete with you in miraculous power, and it was impossible to dissuade them. I beg the Lord to manifest his own miraculous power and turn them from the wrong views and establish them on the path of virtue. If you do exhibit miraculous powers, I also beg you to be allowed to see them." The Buddha said, "Your Majesty, it is I, not they, who shall set the time of the contest. Prepare a large area, I shall participate in the contest." King ordered his minister to prepare a large level field in the center place, the lion throne, and adorn with the banner of victory and standard of the conqueror, and many kinds of offering. But when the time has come for the contest to take place, all the people were assembled to watch it and marvel. The Buddha and his disciples from Rajgriha to Vaishali, whereupon the Litchavis and many others went out to welcome him. The 6 heretic teachers arrogantly announced, "You did not believe us when we said that the monk Gautama could not compete with us in magic powers," and in great pride followed him to Vaishali. And then King Bimbisara made ready 500 chariots, and with 1,040,000 followers for them who took provisions, proceeded to the place in Vaishali where the Buddha was. The 6 heretic teachers went to the Litchavis and told them that they had come to compete with Gautama in magic powers, and the contest would last for a week. Thereupon the Litchavis went to the Buddha and told him, "Lord, how stupid heretic teachers who pretend to have great abilities have reported that they are going to compete with you in magic powers. We beseech you to vanquish them." Buddha replied, "So be it, but I shall set the time." When the Lichavis and all the people have prepared all the necessities and has had King Bimbisara. But the next day, the day before the contest, Buddha and his followers proceeded to a place called Kaushambi, where King Udriyana and all ministers went out to meet him. From Kaushambi, the Buddha proceeded to Varachi, from Varachi to Digyashri, from Digyashri to Banaras, which was ruled by King Brahmadatta, from there to Kapila, the land of his own people, Shakyas, and from there Kapila to Sravasti, the land of Prasenajit, who followed the king of these countries, the Indirajas numbering many hundreds of thousands, and the six-headed teacher with the 90,000 followers. Thereupon the six-headed teacher went to King Prasenajit and said, "Your Majesty, Mount Gautama keeps postponing our contest of magic powers and has finally made his way here. Many great kings and others have assembled. Do you command the contest begin?" King Prasenajit laughed and said, "You cannot compete with the enlightened one who is endowed with amazing powers and whose thought is inconceivable, cannot be grasped. How can an ordinary human being compete with the king of Dharma?" Nevertheless, he went to the Buddha and said, "Lord, for a long time now, these six heretics have been insisting upon competing with you. I beseech you, Lord, to put them to shame with his powers." When the Buddha said, "So be it," the king ordered his ministers prepare a place, clean it, and strew it with flowers, incense, set up a lion throne, and the victory banners. Calling together a great entourage, the king prepared many kinds of food, great offerings, and on the new moon of the first month of the spring, the Buddha and his disciples came and sat on the lion throne. Offerings were made to him, and he was honored. Lord placed a tooth stick on the ground, and a tree sprang up, whose branches and foliage extended for 500 yojanas and bore flowers as large as cartwheels. From the flowers came forth many kinds of fruit as large as gallon jars. The roots and branches and the foliage of the tree were floated with 7 kinds of jewels and shone and gleamed in many colors, more brightly than the sun and moon. When one ate of the fruit, it was more delicious than ambrosia, and its very aroma filled one with delight. When the leaves and branches rustled in the breeze, the true voice of Dharma was heard. All who saw this tree attained mind of firm faith, and when the Buddha has taught them the Dharma, their minds were pacified. They obtained the fruits, and there were many who attained the birth among the gods. Next day, when King Udriyana made offering to the Lord, who appeared on each side of the Buddha's 2 lofty jeweled mountain, adorned with precious gems and iridescent with sparkling colors, from which sprang exquisite trees, flowers, fruits, and if we listen to lovely sounds. On the summit of 101 mountain there appeared delicious fruit of 1,100 different flavors, and all the people ate them with delight. On the summit of the other mountain there grew tender, lush grass, and the animals ate it until they were satisfied. When the Lord taught the Dharma, people's minds were liberated. They established mind of supreme enlightenment, and those born among the higher classes of the gods were beyond count. Next day, the king Sochinadi made offering to the Buddha and his disciples. When the king rinsed his mouth after eating and water fell on the ground, the great jewel-like appeared, whose shores extended for 200 yojanas and were covered with 7 kinds of jewels, which shone in various colors. The leg was covered with blue, yellow, red, white, and various colored lotuses as large as cartwheels, whose brilliance extended into the firmament. All who saw the jewel lake were amazed, delighted, and extolled it. When the Buddha had taught the Dharma, and the people have had understood it. Some established mind of supreme enlightenment, some attained fruits and were reborn as gods, and those who established virtues were beyond numbering. Next day, King Indravarma made offerings. The Buddha caused 8 streams to flow from the jewel lake and returned to it. From the sound of the streams flowing there came the voice of the teachings, various dharmas, 5 powers, 7 aspects of bodhicitta, and the 8-fold noble path, 3 doors of liberation, 6 supernormal abilities, 6 paramitas, great love, great compassion, 4 immeasurables. Through hearing this voice of Dharma and understanding it, some attain the fruits of Buddhahood, and many attain desire to be reborn among the gods and establish an accumulation of virtue. Next day, King Brahmadatta made offerings. Buddha brought forth from his face a golden light which illuminated the entire universe of the great thousand. This light, it removed the 3 poisons and the 5 obstacles of all beings, and their minds and body became totally pacified. As shown, a monk attains the 3rd dhyana. There were countless people who established their minds in supreme enlightenment when the Lord taught the Dharma, and many were born among the gods and created virtue. Next day, the Litsavi made offering to the Buddha, and Buddha made it possible for all to know each other's thoughts. When the people understood each other's virtues and non-virtue, all were filled with joy and approved and lauded the virtue of the Lord. When he had taught them the Supreme Law, they had understood it. Countless beings desired and sought supreme enlightenment, attained their friends, and wished for birth among the gods. Next day, the Shakyas made offering to the Buddha, transformed all into Chakravartins, each possessing the 7 precious things, 1,000 sons, honored the vassal kings and all their nobles. When all were delighted and amazed, the Lord explained to them the differentiation of the Dharma. The minds of all were pacified. There were countless beings who established the mind of supreme enlightenment, attained the fruits, and were reborn among gods and men. Next day, Indra prepared a lion throne, and when the Buddha had entered himself upon it, Indra made offering to his left hand, and Brahma made offering to the right hand, while the great assembly remained speechless. Buddha pressed the lion throne with his right hand, and from the throne there came forth a sound like the great roar of an elephant, and 5 Rakshas who smashed the seats of the 6 heretic teachers to bits. Vajrapani appeared and brandished the tip of his Vajra, which was flaming with the fire, and at the heads of the 6 teachers, and in utter terror they jumped into the water and perished. Thereupon their 90,000 followers came to the Buddha and begged to become monks. When the Buddha said, "Welcome," their hairs and beards fell away, and they were monks. When the Buddha had taught them the Dharma, all the outflows were stopped. They were totally liberated from the defilements, and they became arhats. Then the Buddha brought forth 84,000 rays of light, from which pores of the skin, and these completely filled and illuminated the firmaments. Upon each rays of light there appeared a lotus, the sun, which upon each lotus there appeared a Buddha, and each attendant teaching the Dharma. When the great assembly saw this, they rejoiced and exclaimed, "How fortunate we are to see this great wonder which the Lord has created." When the Buddha had taught them the Dharma, some established their minds in the supreme enlightenment, some attained the fruits, some had desired to be born as a man and gods. Those who attained the virtues were without number. Next day, the king Brahma made offering to the Lord and his disciples, and as the Buddha projected a beam of light as far as the realm of Brahma and illuminated the entire firmament and the earth. All who saw it heard the word of the Buddha and attained blessings as before. Next day, the 4 great Maharajas made offerings, and great assembly saw the Lord's body extend to the realm of Maharaja and fill the space as far as extreme limits of the samsara. From it there streamed a great light, and people saw and heard the Dharma, rejoiced, believed, and attained the blessings as before. Next day, Anathapindika made offering to the Lord, sat on the lion throne invisible, but a great light appeared, and when the Dharma was taught in sweet tones, all heard it, attained blessings as before. Next day, Prince Chanda made offerings, because upon that day the Lord was absorbed in meditation of love, bringing forth a great beam of golden light, which illuminated the entire universe of the great thousand. This beam purified the poisons of all beings. A mind of great compassion arose in them. They loved each other as fathers and mothers, brothers and sisters, and rejoiced. When the Lord had taught them Dharma, they attained blessings as before. Next day, King Sunjanadi made offerings. On that day, Buddha sat on the lion throne and projected from his navel 2 rays of light, which extended in the firmament of the 7 fathoms. On the point of each ray has a lotus, and a Buddha appeared on each lotus. From the navel of each Buddha there appeared 2 rays of light with lotuses of Buddha, and this was extended until the entire great universe was filled with them. All the people were astonished when they saw this, and when Buddha had taught them the Dharma, attained blessings as before. Next day, the king Udrayana made offerings, and when the stream flowers before the Buddha Lord, they were transformed into 250 jewel vehicles, which filled the entire universe, 3,000 great 3,000. When the people saw that their minds became totally pure, and when the Buddha had taught them the Dharma as a healing medicine which cures illness, they attained blessings as before. Next day, King Bimbisara made offering to the Buddha, and when the Lord said, "Your Majesty, it is time to prepare food," 100 vessels were miraculously filled with the various kinds of delicious food which satisfy the minds and bodies of all. Then the Lord touched the earth with his hands, and the sufferings of the countless beings in the countless hells became visible. These beings said to each other, "It is because of our former evil deeds that we now undergo this inconceivable misery." When the great assembly heard this, they were so terrified that their hair stood on end, and their mind of great compassion arose in them. When the Lord had taught them the Dharma, their minds were pacified, and they attained blessings as before. When the beings in the hells saw the Buddha and heard the Dharma, in a mind of faith was born in them, and when they were reborn they took rebirth as a god and men. Then King Bimbisara knelt and spoke to Buddha. The Lord was has the amazing 32 marks on his body. I beseech the Lord to show this great assembly that the mark on the sole of his foot, which is the wheel with 1,000 spokes. When the Buddha had shown them the wheel, they were amazed and asked, "Lord, what former deeds did you do that has come about?" Buddha said, "It is because in times long past I practiced 10 virtues and exhorted others to practice them." The king then said, "Lord, I beg you to compassionately tell you, practice the 10 virtues and cause others to practice them." The Buddha said, "Listen well, Your Majesty, hear it well in mind, and I shall tell you. The ages long recall, there lived a great king by the name of Satanimi in this Jambudvippa, who ruled over 84,000 minor kings, had 100,000 ministers and 100,000 wives, and so on, and being without an heir was miserable. He made offering to the 3 jewels and performed various virtuous deeds in order that a son might be born into him, and his queen Sutipala did indeed become pregnant. When she became pregnant, her intelligence increased, and she exhorted many people to do the works of virtue. When the months were fulfilled, a son was born to her, who was exceedingly handsome and comely, of good complexion, and from all the pores of his body there radiated light. A king was overjoyed and called a soothsayer who examined the boy and said, "This is extraordinary child. According to the science, he will be a Chakravartin and rule over 4 continents." Delighted, the king asked the soothsayer to name the boy. The soothsayer, "Your Majesty, when the child was still in the mother's womb, there were many unusual signs." King said, "Yes, the queen became pregnant. She had her intelligence increased, and she found pleasure in doing virtuous deeds. Thereupon the soothsayer named the child Prajnaprabha. When he grew up, was unsurpassed in wisdom and intelligence. When the king died, all the nobles and ministers petitioned the prince, "Prince, your father had died, and there is no other son. We beg you to become king." The prince said, "I cannot become king. The people cannot commit corrupt, sinful deeds, killing, imprison each other, and I cannot participate in that kind of activity. If the people would perform 10 virtues, then I would consent to become king." The nobles and ministers said, "Your Majesty, it shall be as you desire." As soon as the prince became king, he issued a proclamation to all the people: "Subject, abandon evil deeds, practice 10 virtuous deeds." The people did this, and then they lived in great happiness. Then the mind of jealousy arose in the Mara, and in order to disturb the king's rule, he issued a false proclamation in the king's name, saying, "Formerly I commanded you the people to abandon the sinful acts and perform works of virtue. This has proven to be error and has benefited no one. You may now commit all the evil deeds you wish." When this proclamation came into the hands of minor kings, they became worried and thought, "This cannot be true. Why would the king encourage evil? We must ask the king himself about this." When they reported to the king, he was astonished and said that no such proclamation has been issued, and himself went to visit his various kingdoms. Thereupon the Mara caused a great bonfire and to appear along the highway, and in it a man burning and crying out in a pious voice, "Long ago I caused people to perform 10 virtues. That is the reason I am now undergoing this unbearable suffering." The king stopped and said, "There is no law which says that the result of encouraging others to do good is suffering. I have no compassion to your present misery, because only happiness results from virtue." Mara and the bonfire then disappeared. The king visited all the lands and people and exhorted them to continue to perform the 10 virtues. All made effort to do this with body, speech, and mind, and then they had praised and lauded the king's virtue. He became endowed with the golden wheel and 7 precious things, and went through the 4 continents, exhorting all beings to enter the Dharma. "Your Majesty, my present father Shuddhodana was that great king. My mother Maya was his queen, and I myself that king, Prajnaprabha, who exhorted others to practice 10 virtues. Because at that time I myself practiced virtue and caused others to do so, I now have the sign of a 1,000-spoked wheel on the soles of my feet." So this shows that every major and minor marks the Buddha's holy body has are not some kind of a genetic manipulation or anything like that. These are a result of great many virtues created like that. Then King Bimbisara asked the Buddha, "Lord, why did the 6 heretics challenge you to contest, which they could not win, and when they were unable to compete with your miraculous deeds, run away in fear and shame and drowned themselves?" The Buddha said, "Your Majesty, it is not only this lifetime that these 6 teachers had challenged me and lost their lives for the sake of name and fame. They also did this in ages long past and great harm to themselves." When the king Bimbisara knelt and begged the Buddha to relate how the 6 teachers had challenged him in times long past, Lord said, "Listen well, Your Majesty, bear it in your mind, and I shall tell you. In eons long ago, eons past counting, past recall, there was a king in this Jambudvipa by the name of Shakuli, who had 400 minor king subjects to him. Although he had 500 wives, no heir had been born into him, and the king thought, old age and death are approaching. I have no heir. When I pass on, there will be dissent among 500 minor kings. They will not live in peace, and there will be great destruction and suffering. While he sat sadly thinking on these things, Indra, the lord of the gods, saw his misery and said, and descending from the firmament, transformed himself into a doctor, approaching the king and asked, "Your Majesty, what is the cause of your worry?" The king explained to him. The doctor said, "Your Majesty, fret no more. I shall go to the Himalayas, gather medicinal herbs, bring them and give it to you, Your Majesty's many wives, who will then become pregnant." Hearing this, king rejoiced greatly and approved. The doctor then went to the Himalayas, gathered many varieties of herbs, brought them to the king's palace, boiled them in the milk, and gave the portion to the king's first wife. And then, but the smell nauseated her, and she refused to take it. The 499 other wives did take the portion and immediately became pregnant. Meanwhile, the doctor returned to the realm of the gods. When the first queen learned what had happened, she regretted what she had done and asked if there was any of the portion left. When told that there was not, only the dregs, she took the dregs, boiled them in milk, drank the medicine, and then became pregnant. When the sons were born to all lesser queens, they were handsome and comely, and the king rejoiced and kept asking, "When will my first queen give birth?" When the first queen's time came, she gave birth to a son whose complexion was so bad that he resembled like tree stump, and they gave him that name. When the other sons grew up, wives were found for them, but no one would marry Prince Stump because of his ugliness. Sometime later, the kingdom was invaded by the army of another king, and 449 princes went out to do battle, but were defeated, and in terror returned to the palace. When the prince Tam came out and asked them why they were retreating, he said, "These few enemies cannot overcome us. Bring me our ancestors' bow and horn, and I shall go out to battle with them." The prince's ancestor had been Chakravartin, and no one but a world ruler could draw a bow and blow the horn. When the prince was given the bow and drew it, it made sound like a roar of a dragon and could be heard 40 yojanas. Going out alone to face the enemies, he blew the throne, and sound was like 1,000 thunderbolts crushing the earth. Hearing it, the armies ran away in terror. The prince returned to the palace and was honored as a hero by the king, the queen, and nobles, and it was decided that the time had come when he must marry. King, hearing that a king called Loshipacha had a daughter who was rare in the world for her beauty, sent 2 ambassadors to him asking for hand. King Loshipacha sent the word back, "Which son are you asking for? It is the one of your handsome sons good? If it is the ugly one, answer is no." When the ambassador returned and reported the king, he decided upon a ruse and sent the King Lotchipala, one of the most handsome sons, with the message, "This is your son-in-law." King Lotchipala was pleased and agreed to marry his daughter to him. The king Mahasakuli then sent his representative to bring the girl, and when she arrived, arranged things so the prince and the girl never saw each other during the daytime, but slept together every night. Sometime later, when the girl was taking with other princes, and each was praising her husband's prowess, the girl praised her husband. Prince Stump, the other women laughed and told her, "Your husband is so terribly ugly, and he looks like a tree stump. Why don't you look at him in the daytime? You would be terrified." Wondering if this was true, that night when her husband was asleep, she lit a lamp and looked at him. Seeing his ugliness, she did become terrified and run away to her own country. In the morning, when the Prince Stump found his wife gone, he searched for her, and hearing that she had returned to her own country, took the bow and horn and followed her. When he arrived at the country, he found the 6 other princes. Hearing that the princess had returned, had come with the armies to carry her off. This worried the king, who called his ministers together and said to them, "If I give my daughter to one of the princes, the others will be angry and will cause trouble. What will I do to rid myself of these enemies?" One minister suggested cutting the girl into 6 pieces and giving the piece to each. Others of the ministers disapproved this and thought it would be better if the king gave his daughter to whomever could force the armies to return to their lands. King liked this idea and issued a proclamation to that effect. When the Prince Stump knew of this, he took the bow and arrow horn and went outside the city where the armies were encamped, and blew the horn and drew the bow. When the armies heard the sounds, they were paralyzed with fear. The prince went among the armies, cut off the heads of the 6 princes, took their crowns, and the armies surrendered. King was delighted, returned his daughter to him, and made him the ruler over the 6 countries belonging to the 6 princes. Taking his wife with him, Prince Stump returned to his own place. One day, when he asked his wife why she had left him, she said, "When I saw you ugly, I feared that you were not a human being, was terrified, and returned home." Prince obtained a mirror and looked at in it, and he saw his own ugliness, decided that it would be better to die than be so ugly. Going to the forest, he made preparation for death. Indra, the Lord of gods, seeing him from far, quickly came and asked, "Son, why are you preparing to die?" When the prince explained to him, Indra said, "There's no need for you to die. I'll help you," and gave him a magic jewel to wear in his hair. Immediately Prince became handsome, returned to the palace, and as he was taking down his bow and horn, his wife, not recognizing him, asked, "Who are you? You must not touch these things, because when my husband returns, he will certainly kill you." When the prince said, "But I am your husband," the prince did not believe him and told him, "You cannot be my husband. My husband is exceedingly ugly, and you are handsome." When the prince removed the jewel from his crown, hair, and again became ugly, his wife believed him, and then he had explained what happened. They both lived together happiness, and he has no longer called the Prince Stump, but Prince Sulasan, the most handsome of all. Sometime later, the prince decided to build a palace and commanded his subject to erect one in a great plain. The king of the Nagas transformed himself into human form, and coming into the prince said, Your Highness, we are going to build a great palace. How will you build it? Of earth or what?" The Prince Sulasan said, "It will be constructed of earth." Naga king said, "But why don't you build out of jewels?" When the prince said that it would be impossible to find many in jewels, the Naga king said, "If you wish to build your palace of jewels, we will help you." Thereupon he magically created 4 springs in the 4 directions and told the prince, "If you will draw water from a spring and in the east, it will become lapis lazuli. If you draw water from the south, it will be gold. It will be, if from the west, silver, from the north, crystal." The prince did as the Naga king had told him and built a jewel palace 400 yojanas in circumference like a palace of the gods. Among the highways he constructed many buildings of wood and crystal and caused clear sparkling water to flow. When he had completed this and 7 precious possessions arrived by themselves, and the prince became a ruler over 4 continents, caused all beings to perform works of virtue. "Your Majesty, my father Suddhodana was the king Mahasakuli. My mother Mayandevi was the queen. I myself was Prince Stump. Prajapati was his wife, and Kashyapa was her father. The 6 hereditary teachers were the 6 princes who tried to obtain the princess. At that time, they fought against me, and because I killed them, captured their armies from their time until now, attached to fame and gain, they have continued to fight me, although they have no miraculous power, would rather drown them correct to faults, and now their 90,000 disciples have become monks." Then King Bimbisara asked, "Lord, what had Prince Stump formerly done to become so mighty? And what had he done that he was so ugly?" Buddha said, "Listen carefully, Your Majesty, and I shall tell you the law of cause and effect. Eons ago, eons before recall, beyond recounting, there lived in this Jambudvipa in the land of Varanasi at a place called Hill of Rishis a certain Pratyeka Buddha. This Pratyeka Buddha was subject to a nervous disorder and treated it with clarified butter. One day he went to the house of a butter maker and begged for some. The man became angry, insulted the sage, and told him, "You beggar, if you don't beg, you wouldn't be able to eat. Your head looks like a tree stump, and your hands look like a dried bark. Nevertheless, he gave the Pratyeka Buddha less of clarified butter. As the sage was leaving with a tiny bit of butter, the butter maker's wife came in and met with a tiny bit of water, and the butter maker's wife came in met with a tiny butter of butter, and butter maker's wife came in and met the only man had faith in him and asked, 'Ah, noble one, from where do you come, and where will you do with this drop of butter?' When the Pratyeka Buddha explained, the woman invited him back into the house and filled his begging bowl with clarified butter. Turning to her husband, she said, 'You have given this holy man only the dregs of butter and have insulted him. You must ask the saints forgiveness for this offense.' A mind of repentance was born in the man, and both he and his wife bowed before the Pratyeka Buddha and begged him to come to take as much butter as he wished in the future. Thereafter, the saint became often their house came to their often house to obtain butter, and in order to repay their kindness, exhibited various supernormal powers, them such as soaring up in the sky, sitting there and making flames shoot from his body and water to flow. When the butter maker and his wife saw the marvels, a mind of great serene faith was born in them. And the husband said, "By the merits we have gained by giving butter to this holy man, may we always be reborn man and wife." The wife replied, "Because you first gave only the dregs of butter to the sages, insulted him, and had no faith, you will be reborn ugly." How can I be your wife? I will run away, and you will have to come after me to bring me back. The husband and wife then dedicated their lives to the Pratyeka Buddha and confessed their faults. Pratyeka Buddha told them, "You too have cured my nervous disorder by making me butter, giving me butter, and I shall fulfill whatever you with wish you may have. In great joy, the man and his wife knelt and asked them whatever they would be born in the realms of the gods, a man, they would be together as a man and a wife. Your Majesty, Prince Thump was the butter maker and his wife was the princess. Because he offended the Pratyeka Buddha and gave him only dregs of butter, throughout all his lives he was born ugly. Because he repented, confessed, and gave the saint good butter, he later became handsome and enormous strength and invincible, and a Chakravartin ruling over 4 continents and possessing the 5 longed for joys. Your Majesty, the effects of good and evil acts are never destroyed like one's shadow. They never leave one. Therefore, guard the workings of body, speech, and mind. When the Buddha had thus spoken, King Bimbisara, the princes and nobles, and the 4 parts of the great assembly, together with men and gods, become stream and winners, one's returners, non-returners, and arhats. Some, desiring to become Pratyeka Buddhas, established the root of virtue. Some established their minds the super enlightenment. All rejoiced greatly and believed. So that's a lengthy, chunky story with all the stories of six heretical teachers and 15 great kings making different offerings, elucidating the story of the Prince Stump. So that's where we're going to stop. Thank you, everybody. That's a very, very rich story. Has a lot to read, a lot to reflect on. Incredible karma. You cannot overlook. Calling names to people. You should not hesitate to make even small prayers, however insignificant the act may be. You should always try to make a virtuous outcome from that, and they usually become. So that is the really morale of the story. Thank you very much, everybody listening and reflecting on these meanings. I'm sure we too have had done similar things, and we too can improve on those things. So we can say that by merit of us at least listening to these stories, may we be able to remember these things and not be small in making our prayers and dedications, however difficult things we're going through. And at the same time, never let even smallest deeds that seem so insignificant, but not overlook them. Because even small fire can burn the whole mountain. Even drops of water can fill the jars. So therefore, act like listening and thinking and reflecting on this kind of story is the kind of drop of water. We should always let our mind become soaked by this cool dewdrop of the Dharma. So merit of everybody giving your time, listening and being together. It gives everyone inspiration, and so as we will do the dedication merits, may the benefit will go far away and reaching everywhere, and stop all the violence, stop all the fightings between countries, between nations, between continents, between tribes or whatever. Most importantly, between ourselves and our past. So we have to be kind to our past. We have to be kind to people in our past, and then we're going to find incredible solace. So that with that we will going to dedicate the merit. Thank you, everyone. Whatever merit I have, may all be begun Truhoda Mahayana Jiji Kareja Manju Shinyawadi Azamanda Bharadilaiva Following Awade Hizamba Ashadege Odimere Mede Hezelem Body Jida Bavera no Yedanza where has been vomiting freely without degeneration. Thank you, everyone.